everyone, I'm Poppy Lee Jennings, and today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about art markets. It's a huge opportunity for a lot of small businesses and local artists to get out and meet customers, but it's also quite a tricky experience to navigate. Because I've just had a weekend where I did 2 markets and led a workshop, I thought it would be a good time to talk about like the downfalls and the high expectations of markets and how to navigate that as a creative. I think that like local art markets in particular, rather than big trade shows, because I've never done a big trade show, so I should like preface what I'm talking about by saying that. With local art markets, it can be really hard to know as a creative what's going to do well, how customers are going to receive you, and also just like set up tips. Because I've been doing it for 4 years, I thought that it would be nice to share some of my experiences with it and how I have learned to navigate it as an artist. So yeah, the past weekend I had a market on the Saturday with Craft and Flea, which is a huge market organisation in the UK. They run craft and flea markets in several cities up and down the country, and they have like little bases in each of those cities as well for like local advertising, marketing and managing of the markets. And then on the Sunday, I was with a local market called Leeds Indie Market in Otley, which is in West Yorkshire, and it's run by one person. It's a very small operation, but she runs markets across like the Leeds area and sometimes kind of like around the periphery of the city as well. And I think it's really interesting to talk about this weekend because like the contrast was so huge, and I just wanted to talk about that in terms of like expectations. So I've done markets with Craft and Flea and with Leeds Indie Markets for well over a year. I can't even remember who I did a market with first, but I think it's interesting because with Craft and Flea, because they're such a big organisation, the expectations are a lot higher, and I did not have a good day this weekend. I actually didn't even make enough to cover the fee, and then it was a very quiet market. There wasn't very many customers. And sometimes when you are with a big organisation that charges more for the tables, it can be a huge disappointment when it doesn't work out, especially if you make more stock, bring more with you in the expectation that they will provide more customers. So when that doesn't happen, it is a bit of a blow. But then on the other side of things, I had slightly lower expectations on the Sunday, not because I have low expectations of the market, but just that local markets, they're really hard to gauge how well they're gonna go. Like, it's honestly like so many artists that I know who've done markets either the same time or longer than I have, or do them more full time. It's not my main source of income when it comes to selling products. But people that I know that do them full time still have very little idea of how to gauge how these experiences are going to go. So I had a really good day on Sunday compared to my day on Saturday, which was very disappointing. As well, you have to factor in things like the weather, travel situations, like all these things that you have no idea about until the day of, and that's what makes it really hard to rely on markets as a main source of income, especially if you don't have the capacity or the financial stability to do them as often as to make them a main source of income. So for me, I've been doing them for 4 years. I had my first market at a venue called Left Bank in Leeds, and that was kind of just after I moved back to Leeds. Oh my god, no, 5 years. I've been doing markets for 5 years because I moved back to Leeds nearly 5 years ago. And I started out, so my setup was basically I shared a table with a friend. We had half the table each, and we just put out like a few art prints and things each. And I didn't have greeting cards, I had some stickers, but that was basically the expanse of my product offering. And 5 years ago, doing markets was very different to doing them now, and that is the reason for that is probably to do with financial changes in the country. The UK is suffering right now, and if you are someone that either works for or runs a small business, it's not a good time for you. And if you have customers that are also in that that citizenship that are also struggling, it's really hard to make money at the minute. So there's that has made the big difference to how markets are this year compared to 5 years ago. But there's also so many more local market organisations that there are independent art markets in multiple venues every single weekend. I know it's probably not the same for every city, so I am speaking predominantly from a Leeds perspective, but also London I know has like a massive offering of independent markets. So there is some aspect of that makes it quite oversaturated, because compared to like 5 years ago, when it wasn't such a massive way for sellers to engage with customers and to sell products, but also for customers to go and to support independent makers and know that they are giving directly to the maker rather than buying from chain shops and retail units and things like that. So because there are so many markets now, it's added to that difficulty of gaining customers, because with them being so frequent and at so many places at the same time, it's not as special. I think it's not as special of an opportunity for people to spend money. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in that there are more opportunities for more people to do independent markets, but there's less money going to them and less customers buying. So it's really tricky to gauge as a seller if you're going to have a good market or not, because it's just really, really hard to tell. So on Saturday with Craft and Flea, it was really, really quiet. It was a huge venue. It was at Sheffield Cathedral. There were not that many people out, and they emailed everybody after to let us know that ticket sales were lower than usual. So it was like a low ticket sales experience for them. And I have feelings about that, because I think on the one hand, for the case of transparency, I think that if an event is making low ticket sales and people are dependent on that event for income, that should be spoken about ahead of the event so that people are aware of it. Because obviously when you get there and you've hired a table space, to then have so few people at the market spending money or just even browsing, it can be really disappointing knowing that you've paid your fee, so the organizer or the venue putting on the market is getting their full income from it, but at the expense of traders. It's a really tricky relationship to have, and I think a lot of the time market traders are seen as complaining when these things happen, or and I think that a lot of organisers sometimes just feel powerless to do more, like especially when so much effort goes into organising and marketing events. Sometimes the turnout just isn't there, and it's not always predictable, but it can be tricky when you know that ticket sales are being recorded and you're, as a market trader, just not being given that information, and you really just have no idea how it's going to go until you turn up. And that is a lot to like bank your time on. There are ways to combat this, which I'll talk about, but then I also want to talk about how amazing local markets can be sometimes. Like I mentioned, the next day I had a market with Leeds Indie Markets, and it was a really good day for me. It exceeded my expectations. I had some great customers. Anybody that wasn't buying was talking, and I think that's what makes it special for market traders, because it can be important as well. Like it can be just as important to gain an online relationship with someone, whether that's new followers on Instagram, TikTok or YouTube, if those are your avenues, or just like taking away your card with your website on, knowing that they will go away, wait until they have saved enough money or found your perfect product for them, and then they go and decide to buy it. So there is an aspect to markets where marketing yourself and your products is so important, but it does often go hand in hand with having a really good attitude to the market, regardless of whether or not you make a good chunk of money for the day. So yes, it can be frustrating. There have been many occasions where I haven't covered the table fee, and it can feel really upsetting at the time, because like obviously you're putting money into it, because that is one of the only avenues you have to sell directly to customers. So obviously you're going to feel very personally about it, but the last thing that you want to do is either let that show with customers, talk about it with customers, because it's just not a good look, and you have to be conscious of that as well. But also not immediately blaming the organisers of that market who are putting in the effort behind the scenes. Like, there's so much that goes into organising an event, and I think that I have that kind of perspective because I've worked in events and marketing before, so I know how much goes into it and how disappointing it can be as an organizer to then not have the footfall that you want to promise to people. It can be really, really hard for everybody involved, but obviously there is a risk there that when the income for the markets is reliant on the market traders, and that always gets paid, there is a difficult kind of balance there that you have to maintain as a market trader or as an organizer, to make sure that you are respectful towards each other, regardless of how many people there are that go as customers. And I think it's really important to talk about, because it's something that market traders talk about to each other, but it's also something that organisers talk to about each other separately, and I don't think enough conversations happen like between each other. And whether that's because, you know, you're trading with a huge organizer that you don't really have any face-to-face contact with, which is the case when it's a larger organization, because they're often working behind the scenes, and then they have staff that are there on the day to do the setup, the takedown, and to like check in on everyone, make sure everyone's okay. But as well, I think it's hard to discuss these things and to feel like there's blame being thrown about, because I think you are going to come across markets where there isn't much marketing done, but you can often tell well before you pay a fee somewhere if that's the case. And I think that you have an element there of personal due diligence, where you have to check on markets, you have to talk to people that have done them before, find out what's worked, what hasn't worked, where people feel let down and where they feel really, really well supported. And I think it's just the case sometimes that you feel a lot of incredible support from these local market organisers, and sometimes it just doesn't work out for everybody, and there's no one to blame in that situation. So in situations like that, you just have to treat it and remember it as an incredible marketing opportunity for you as an artist. And I don't think that it should always be spoken about in that way. I don't think that market holders should be told time and time again that this is a marketing opportunity, because for a lot of people, if that is their source of income, that is their priority, and it's okay for it to be a priority. If you don't sell in traditional retail settings, oftentimes the only way that you sell products is at independent markets. And I think sometimes people forget that, because whether you're running an independent market or you're trading at one, that whole experience is always going to feel personal, and that's just because it's a personal project. You know, it's people don't run independent markets as like a big money business kind of making thing. You run them because you believe that these independent artists and crafters deserve to have a space where they can sell and meet customers in a world where we are overrun by corporate retail structures. So full respect to anybody organising markets and independent craft fairs, because they're so important to market traders as an opportunity to meet customers and to share these experiences. So as much as I wish that I could explain to people how to get all the benefits from trading at markets, there is just no one way to do it. I still don't know what each market that I sign up for is going to offer me. If you don't have a really positive persona at markets, it makes customers feel a certain way about buying from you. Like, regardless of how much they like your product, you have to give them a personality that makes them want to buy from you. And that's what makes it different from buying, you know, something from a big retail company versus something handmade, is that you are buying from a person rather than a company. And I think that we tend to have, as a society, we have more leniency for corporate companies that are faceless, and we put a lot more pressure on independent sellers, people selling their wares. And maybe that shouldn't be the case, but at the same time, you are met with buying directly from the person and wanting to buy from a good person, a kind person, an enthusiastic person, versus someone who doesn't really feel like talking at markets or doesn't know how to sell themselves well. And it is a skill that you have to learn. I'm not saying that it's like impossible, or like if you have a more introverted personality like I do, I'm more introverted than I am extroverted. But you have to adapt if you want to sell directly to people, because they are buying from you. So as long as you do that, your chances of having good sales or good marketing on the day will increase exponentially. I've had markets where I've been probably not in the best place, and it does show sometimes, and I think that it can make people want to pull away from you a little bit. And it's not always intentional. I think it's just a human experience, in that when you are face to face with a person who is not giving a positive like face, you don't feel inclined to buy from them or support them. And I think it's just a human thing, and we have to adapt to that as independent sellers. So some of my top tips for doing markets, the biggest tip that I can offer anybody is to have a good price range of products. So for me, my cheapest product is my stickers, which are £2 each. My most expensive products that I sell, that I bring to market specifically, are my A3 prints, which are £35. And my prints tend to be on the higher side because I do giclée printing, which just means that they're really high quality ink and cotton rag papers. The reason why it's really, really important to have a range of prices for customers is that you are going to have a range of people coming to these markets. Something that you'll find with your customers at markets as well is that they want to support you if they like you, regardless of if they can afford to buy your most expensive products or not. So having something smaller and more affordable gives them the opportunity to support you without feeling like they're risking a lot of money that they may not necessarily have. There is a lot of people in this world that want to support local artists and help them keep their businesses thriving, that don't have a lot of income themselves to spend. So a great way to do that is to offer them a product opportunity that is affordable, that they feel like they're giving to you, while at the same time not compromising themselves. And I think that's something that's really important to remember. Even if the craft or the artwork that you create you feel like is a higher price item, it's good to make sure that everybody that sees your work knows that there is a price point for everybody and that everybody is accepted as a customer. And that can be something as simple as turning, for example, your illustrations or your artwork into stickers, into postcards. Greeting cards are another great example, and even if they're not saying happy birthday on them, there are a lot of people that will buy greeting cards that have artwork on them just because they like the way they look, or they know that someone will appreciate them with there being a message on the inside. So most of my greeting cards, for example, just have an image on the front of them. They are blank inside, which gives people the freedom to write their own messages in, and it can be for any occasion then. It gives people a little bit more freedom. But again, I know some incredible card designers that come up with the most witty, amazing, creative greeting cards that are just not within my wheelhouse. And they also sell really well. So there's no right or wrong way to do greeting cards. But if you aren't a greeting card designer and you want to have greeting cards but you don't know where to start, just putting your artwork on a cover of a greeting card is offering people another product. I'll put up a little sign as well with all my different pricing points, just to give you an idea of how I do it. I tend to use a lot of eco-friendly cardstocks, recyclable or biodegradable stuff, which does bump up my prices a little bit, and it may not be how you would price your stock, but that's the reason why usually. If you are ever worried about numbers ahead of a market and knowing how much stock to take with you, it is absolutely fine to get in touch with the market organizer as well and check in with them, see how they're feeling about the market, if they've had a lot of traction on their websites, their social media pages, if they're doing a lot of online marketing, check in with them about the numbers, see if they wouldn't mind sharing it with you. Just make sure that when you do it, you're doing it from a place of, oh, it would be great to know this for like stock reasons, and like also just check in, how are you finding it, more than do you think that I'll sell lots of products. Because the reality of that is that market organisers just never know. They can't possibly know what kind of customers are going to go. All they can do is advertise the markets to the best of their abilities and keep people updated on how numbers are looking, how viewership online is looking, and also what in-person marketing they've done. Something that I will say is that not all markets do in-person marketing, whether that's like flyering or posters, and that can sometimes be a risk, especially at the minute with how algorithms on social media platforms play out. I have done markets where I've not seen the posts advertising the markets that I follow online until days after the event has already passed. So I think it's really important to remember as well for these events to check in. If you're an organizer, make sure that you do in-person marketing as well. Like if part of the budget that you get from stallholder fees goes towards marketing, don't put it all in online, because there's no guarantee that anybody is going to see it, especially with people moving away from online marketing events and trying to look more in person and finding things that are more visible and present on posters and flyers. I think it's just really important as online shifts constantly to make sure that you're getting things in front of people's eyes, like right there, rather than depending on what online marketing can do for you. Algorithms, be damned, we use them, we have to, but they are very finicky, and you never know if online marketing is going to reach the right kind of people. You just have no idea. But if you do local flyering, you know that they're getting out to people in the local area. People that go to local businesses like cafes and shops will pick up flyers for events, and they will make a note of it to go back to them and to see these products that are going to be at markets. So definitely make sure that there is a good balance between online and in person, because I've seen so many markets fail that have only relied on social media marketing, and it just creates tension with market stall holders, but also it's going to limit the amount of people that are going to want to come back and trade if you haven't done that due diligence and you have relied too heavily on one output of marketing and publicity. And that's speaking as someone that has organised markets in the past, and like the amount of effort that needs to go into different avenues of it. I've worked with a lot of community venues and non-profit organisations where they still have a large population of customers that don't use online spaces, and there is more and more young people turning away from social media. So if your target market is young people, we need to look at how generationally our interactions with online spaces are changing, and marketing for markets is a big one for that as well. So that's just like something that you as a organisers should be aware of, but also as a stall holder, check in on the markets that you want to be with. If you know anyone that's done them before, ask them how they found the experience, regardless of if it's busy or quiet. How was their experience with the organizer, with the setup? Questions like that will always lead you more to what's going to be a beneficial market compared to, you know, oh, was it quiet that day? Did you still sell things? Like, things like that are too personal to gauge for your own sales in the future. So it's really good to be aware of the different ways that markets can do well or flop. A good way to know what is going to be a good market for you personally is to look back at those markets and see what stall holders they have given spots to you in the past. And the reason for that is because the venue and the location of the market will be just as important to bringing in your customers as whichever market organizer you've decided to go with. For me, I know that certain areas in West Yorkshire where I'm based have done a lot better for me customer wise. Certain venues bring in my kind of clients compared to other ones, and you have to be aware of these things, and you might not be totally aware of it until you do a market there. Sometimes it really is just about trying it out and seeing how it goes. I've made a point over the past few years of working with as many different market organisers that I can, just to gauge which venues and which towns my products do particularly well in. There have been places that I have expected to do better in than others and have completely flopped. I remember I had one market with an organiser that I've worked with loads of times, but in this particular location it just didn't work for me. I didn't have the customers or the clients come in that wanted my kind of products, and that's not that's not because my products weren't any good. It's just that in that particular location it wasn't my kind of clientele, and these things happen. And it's for me, it means that I'm less likely to go back to that location to do a market, but that doesn't mean that I won't work with that market organizer again, if that makes sense. So like, you have to be able to distinguish between like what's going wrong in terms of the market that you've applied to versus the location that the market is in. So there are certain locations for me that haven't worked, which I can gauge because of the customers coming in, that wouldn't work for me in the future. And it is just about knowing and like checking in with other market stall holders as well, and like if a particular type of business has done really well with their customers and it's a completely different offering to yours, and I don't just mean like, you know, like if you sell soaps versus art prints, I mean what kind of artwork or greeting cards or like visible products, paper products, if you're a paper artist like I am, what kind of products have sold well in that location. And if it's not something that you cater to, it's okay to accept that it's just not a location for you. And it takes a little while, I think, once you start selling at markets to get past it feeling personal, but it really is sometimes just about finding the right location for you. The market that I was part of at the weekend in Otley was fantastic for me. I think a lot of my products are seen as more alternative because of the artwork that I create, the kind of illustration work that I do. So because I had a lot of alternative customers coming in, I did really well. And it worked really well for me. But I know that other stall holders there didn't do as well, didn't make as much money, but recognised that there are markets that they would go to that I wouldn't go to because they wouldn't do very well for me. So it's just about trial and error. Try not to do so many markets in the same place, because if you go to the same venue where the venue has the same amount, like the same kind of customers, even the same people coming to their markets every time, and you're there every time, you're not going to get those future sales, because those people have seen you before, either bought from you before or not, and decided that they aren't going to buy from you that time. So it can be risky doing markets in the same place every single time if the customers are often the same. It's less of an issue in city centres and venues specifically in city centres, because they have such a wide range of clients coming in and out that you are going to get that different footfall. But if you are going to like a private venue, like an arts venue, a community centre, where they do have a very solid customer base that isn't going to change dramatically by the next time that you go there, you are risking just not selling very much the next time, because you've already been there enough times for people to know who you are, recognise you, and to know that if they do want to buy from you, they have your information and they will buy from you. I am lucky enough to have customers that come to markets to see me and buy products, even though I have all my products on my website, because they want that interaction, and it's so important to have that. But it also means that, like, if you are having markets at different venues in one area, they're going to be able to travel to see you as well. And they have the option to buy online because they've met you, they know you, and they are happy to do that. I used to do markets very sporadically through the year, especially when I was working full time. So it meant that I really hadn't expanded my knowledge of markets up until a couple of years ago, when I decided to leave my job, work part-time while I did art more full-time. And because of that, I just applied to loads of different markets throughout the year, of the first year doing that, just to see what worked, which organisers I liked working with, which venues that I knew to apply for. I try to at least 2-3 times a year go to locations that I've never been to before, to see if I can find new clients and customers, rather than just going back to venues that I've just done well at, especially if I'm not bringing anything new. The best time of year to do art markets is always Christmas. The problem with that is that everybody is desperately applying to art markets over Christmas, so it can be really difficult to get art markets that time of year. But it's really important that you try and that you bring your best work and you prepare for it in advance, to make sure that you are bringing like a really good range of products, because those are going to be the times that you sell the most products and you make the most money, because you are more likely to have customers go into these markets at Christmas time that are intentionally going to spend money, whereas art markets throughout the rest of the year, nobody is necessarily going to spend lots of money to buy presents for multiple people. Christmas is really unique for that, and the rest of the year you're kind of just looking at good experiences of selling and experiences of meeting customers, whereas Christmas is probably going to be, if you rely on markets, your busiest time of year, just like other retail stores and hospitality businesses. That's going to be your big period. So oftentimes people who rely on markets will start preparing for Christmas months and months in advance. Market organisers will put out their applications in advance to make sure that they get the bookings really early on, they book the venues in time. Everything changes when it comes to Christmas markets compared to markets throughout the rest of the year, and that, I think, is just a product of our society. But it also means that, like, when people are struggling financially, which most people are at the minute, you've got people saving for that experience, saving for those times of year where they are more likely to spend the money on loved ones, friends, family, partners, anything like that. So take advantage of that. Try to book into Christmas markets as early as you can. If you see something advertised, just get straight in there. Get onto mailing lists of market organisers, even if they don't have any slots open. If they have already started taking bookings for markets over the next few months, get on the mailing list, because then you'll be the first to get the information when their trader applications open again, and it's always worth it. I went through, there was 1 week last year where I just did as much research as I could into market organisers, finding the ones that I wanted to be on their mailing lists for, and making sure that I signed up to every single one, so that I had the emails coming in when they were ready, when they were going out to people. There are some markets still that don't take trader applications, and we'll curate them based on a group of artists, illustrators, crafters, food vendors that they have in their network. If you want to trade at those kind of events, you just have to do the work, go and meet those people, drop them a message, introduce yourself, let them know that you'll be at one of their markets as a customer, and it'd be great to chat to them if they have the time. You have to come at markets like that with a very open mind and like ready for rejection, because a lot of the time they are really happy with the network that they have, and they work really well for where they take them, whether they go far for their markets or they're still quite local. But there's nothing wrong with just like getting in touch, introducing yourself to people. Just try not to overwhelm them, and you know, you don't want to reach out to someone who runs markets and tell them why they need you. That's not gonna come across in a great attitude, especially if it's over a written email or a social media message, however you do get in touch with people. So just be conscious that you are asking them for an opportunity. It's not the other way around. You want them to give you an opportunity to meet more people, so you have to make sure that they know what kind of person you are when you do that. And yeah, there are some really great ways to build your network of markets, but just be conscious that it's not just an exercise in selling, because you just can't predict who's going to go, who's going to spend money. And don't take it personally if you do a market and you don't make that much money. Like I said, like I'm really confident in my artwork, I'm really confident in my product offering, but I still have some days where I don't even cover the table fee, and it can be really disheartening, but it's not personal. There are so many factors that go into markets not doing well for you, and unfortunately sometimes that does mean not applying to a market that's run by a person that you really, really like, just because it's not the best experience for you and it doesn't have the best customer base for you and your products, but it might do for lots of other people. So you just have to be conscious of that. It's really hard not to take it personally when people don't buy your products, but you just have to remember that there are so many people out there, so many people that love independent art. You will find your customer base. You have opportunities online to sell to people, show them your process, introduce them to who you are, and just work with that. Sometimes you're just not going to have the best market day, and that's absolutely fine. It's no shade to the organizer, it's no shade to the other traders who have had successes, and it's no shade to you or to your products. It's just not been the best day for you, and that's absolutely fine. It's literally the best piece of advice I could ever give anybody to do with markets. You really have no idea how it's going to turn out, so just have a good day. Just enjoy it. If it is particularly quiet and you want to use that time to work, you can do that. Just be conscious that if you're sat working, as soon as someone starts to get close to your stall, is doing the rounds and they're getting close, stand up, or just obviously if you can't stand up, just make sure that you're there and you're attentive and you're greeting people and you're not just sat there working on things, hi, and then not paying attention to people. It's really important to give people your full focus, your energy, and engage with people as much as possible, even if you do decide to use that time to develop some work or to fill the space. And it's a great way to do it if you're not making that much money, is to use the quiet periods to work, because then at least you're contributing to that time that you've given to the market and it's not going well. You can sit and draw or crochet. I know loads of people that just will crochet, put it down, greet customers, pick it back up again, and that's absolutely fine to do. Also walk around and meet other market holders that are there. Talk to the crafters, the artists that are around you, get to know each other, follow them online and see where they're going to do their markets, because honestly, the best advice and the best people to get advice from are the ones in the same situation as you, the people that are going and doing markets, the people that are selling at certain venues. Interact with each other, give each other advice, share your numbers if you feel comfortable doing that. I personally am happy to share my numbers. I don't really mind doing it. But I've always been very like open about transparency with earnings. So I've never really had a problem with that. But some people do find it quite a personal thing. So don't like openly ask necessarily how much people are earning, but like you can gauge from someone's conversation if they feel like they're having a good day. And like some people will just share it and that's fine, but that doesn't mean that you should pressure other people to share their numbers just because you are. Nobody's entitled to that information of other businesses, but it is a nice thing to share if you're comfortable enough to do that. It's the same as like sharing materials for products and suppliers for products. It's good for the suppliers if they're shared with other artists, and it's good for the artists if they feel like they're wasting money on products that turn up and are just not of high quality. It's the same kind of thing with markets. Share your experiences with organisers, with fellow market stall holders, and talk about these things. Share the information because it benefits everybody in the end. And it's really important to rely on people that are in the same situation. So if somebody has had a particularly bad experience at a market and they sell similar products to you, take that on board and learn from their experience. There's nothing stopping you from doing the market anyway, but just like having your mind that you know a similar artist hasn't done particularly well with that customer base, so you already have the expectation that you might not do as well, but it's a good opportunity to meet people. So there are days that you can kind of go into knowing that you might not necessarily make that much money, but it's a good experience for other sides of your business, whether that's marketing, publicity, talking to other traders, or just like a day that you want to go. When you become a market stall holder, it kind of lessens the amount that you go to markets just for fun, because it becomes a work environment sometimes. So doing markets sometimes is a really nice excuse to go to a market and to go and meet traders that you've been wanting to meet as well. Even if you're not particularly selling very much, at least you are getting to know people, interacting with others, and possibly buying some really, really nice stuff. And sometimes that's okay as well. Markets are really, really strange experiences. You never really know what's going to happen, but they're really, really good opportunity as someone that runs business to meet clients and customers, talk to people about your work. Like the best part for me about markets, other than making money and selling products, because obviously that's what I want to do, is talking to people who are genuinely interested in how I work, how I paint, how I create my prints, where the inspiration comes from. And it's such a lovely thing to meet someone who loves your art, even if they don't have any money to spend or they just want to follow you online. Talk to them about your work because it's genuine, and people will show their interest when they genuinely have it. So use that as an opportunity just to talk to people. It's a really, really valuable experience, and everybody should have it, I think. If you sell crafted, handmade products, just talk to people. It's such a good experience, and it also inspires you to create products that you might not have thought of. Talking to your customers in person is a great way to get ideas for future work, and yeah, just look forward to every aspect of it, but don't go into a market with too high expectations, because they do tend to fall short, especially at the minute. Go in with low expectations so that when they're exceeded, it feels incredible. Just always make sure you have enough products to sell. So yeah, that is kind of a little bit of my experience with markets, my advice on markets, and I hope that there is something valuable in there for you if you want to do markets. I said markets so many times today that the word doesn't feel right on my tongue anymore. But yes, thank you so much for sticking with me, and I really hope that you got something valuable out of it. If you are based in the UK and you would love to come chat to me at market, please do. I love talking to people. I feel like a forced extroverted introvert most of the time when I do markets. But yeah, come chat to me, and if you have any questions at all, or like you have any specific questions you want to ask me, please do. I'm always happy to answer them. If you are curious about numbers, let me know, and I'll do a video in the future talking about my personal experience with markets and like financially what the results have been. I'm really happy to do that, especially because I think a lot of people share their total revenue but not necessarily the product costs. So if you want to talk about product costs as well, we can do that. So many technical terms today. Have a wonderful day, and I'll be back very, very soon. Bye.